Big layoffs are hitting the media world, and some of the hardest hit outlets include HuffPost and BuzzFeed. HuffPost parent company Verizon Media announced it would cut 7% of its workforce, or about 750 employees. And about 220 people in BuzzFeed's workforce are preparing to leave as well. Now, many in the industry say it comes down to advertising and how Facebook and Google have siphoned off revenue. So to break it down, we turn to investigative journalist Benn Swann. Ben, I have to bring you in on this, and you've been affected by social media and some of these algorithms throughout the years. But I have to ask, we're looking at BuzzFeed, HuffPost, Gannett, Verizon Media. There's something that all of them kind of have in common. Let me think what it is. Oh, the majority of them are all liberal leaning. Do you think the political leanings on it have anything to do with these numbers, these companies having to square down and tighten their budgets?
I think it does have a role in there, and I think the reason for that is because that particular worldview, political view, is a very crowded space in media. So it's not like you have just one or two of these entities competing for eyeballs, and that equals ad dollars. Instead, you have dozens and dozens of them, which are all kind of regurgitating the same information, and in many cases, the same kind of Trump hysteria that we've seen over the last couple of years. And I think there is a certain amount of reader and viewer fatigue that hits those publications and those online sites, and I think that's part of the reason that they're seeing these problems. It's one of the reasons anyways.
Well, that's it. I can look at the other side of it going, okay, well, these stories, even if they are a lot of, anti-Trump stories they put out there, anti-conservative stories, things that they go after, they do actually have reporters. They do actually appear at events. They do ask questions. They really try not to actually post what I consider to be clickbait stories that make millions because, a dog rode a scooter. Do you think that on the other side of this is only going to encourage outlets to kind of do more of that kind of clickbait, sensationalized headline journalists that when you actually read the story, you go, yeah, that's not really as big of a deal as what I thought it was going to be?
Well, I think that's a short-term solution. So I think some entities will kind of move in that direction. But I think we are also kind of at the end of that. The last couple of years, 3 or 4 years, we've seen a lot of leaning on those clickbait type of stories. And I think that's also hurt the overall readership and viewership numbers. But one of the problems here, too, Scotty, that a lot of folks aren't talking about is that when you look at sites like BuzzFeed or Vice Media, right, these sites have grown to incredible size because of venture capital money, not advertising dollars. So VC money has poured into these entities, $400 million at a time, $500 million at a time. And they allow these companies to become huge and bloated because there's a promise that eventually they're going to be able to turn a profit. Now those companies like Vice and BuzzFeed are sitting there saying, well, we actually haven't been able to turn a profit. And they blame Facebook in part, they blame algorithms in part, but part of it is just simply the fact that they didn't grow in a natural way of accumulating viewers, readers, and building advertising dollars. They're having to wean themselves off of those bloated venture capital budgets.
Well, it's interesting you bring up the idea of organic, because obviously we know that numbers can be manipulated on some of these sites. Facebook can manipulate numbers, and we've seen a lot of that exposed in the past, and you're going to continue to see it, hopefully, as people want it organically. So does this actually hurt the integrity of all media organizations as you look at numbers and you go, well, is that legitimate or not? Are they manipulating the numbers just to make them look bigger? Is that actually hurt the integrity of everybody when you're seeing numbers on these kind of online media sources kind of go down?
Maybe it does to some extent. I don't know how much viewers care about those numbers. Certainly, again, on the venture capital side, they care. On the advertising side, they certainly care what your numbers are. I think that the viewers are more concerned with journalism, whether or not they can actually find it out there. So one of the big problems that we have is a lot of these entities are not generating good, solid content, or, as we've talked about, the kinds of stories they cover are so narrow in focus. There are so few things they're willing to actually talk about. Look, every single day, the stories that you guys cover on RT is a wide gamut of news that's not being covered in these other places. There's no reason why BuzzFeed can't report on these same things, but they choose not to. And so there's a very limited number of stories that are actually being covered. And again, that creates incredible competition in a very narrow space.
Okay, so final question I have to ask you. Where does a former BuzzFeed opinion reporter go after they are done? Is there a special, I don't know, do they get special therapy? What's next?
Well, after therapy, probably back to the CIA where they were working before they went to work for BuzzFeed.
You know what? I'll pass that job recommendation along to them. Thanks for joining us, Ben.
Right on.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.